And let's get started. All right, so my name is Dr. Carrie Arnold, and I'm the Program Director for Evidence-Based Coaching here at Fielding Graduate University. And I started in my new role last June, and I'm really excited to be part of this first alumni conference that we've held this way, taking full advantage of the fact that we are virtual and that people can join us from all over the world. And for those who've been part of the conference, I hope you enjoyed the sessions yesterday. I'm really excited about the lineup of speakers. And today's presentation is one that is offering ICF CEUs. We are going to keep attendance, so those of you who are in the call will keep track, and at the end we will see who is present. You need to be fully present to get the CEUs. It will be resource development time. That's how the CEU will come. It will come from the Fielding's registrar. And you want to allow a good 3 to 5 weeks to receive that certificate, and it will come by email. I will also be monitoring chat, and we have some tech support here as well. We're going to have some breakout rooms. We're going to have some conversation. We're going to have a formal presentation. So this will be a really wonderful opportunity to be engaged and interactive. And let me now introduce our speakers. And when I reached out to these two ladies, I was just so excited that they agreed to do this for Fielding. So first, let me introduce Sandy, who's the CEO of Learning Advantage. Sandy is actually one of the founders of the Leadership Coach Training Program at Georgetown. She is a master certified coach, a master somatic coach, highly sought after. I did my coach training at Georgetown, and Sandy's name has been one that I have heard multiple times over the last decade. Georgetown has trained over 1,400 coaches, and Sandy has an MBA from Harvard. She has a master's degree in mathematics and computer science. That, along with her leadership experience, she coaches in large organizations, and she's very well recognized in the field. And she also has a book out called Juicy Work. And then Jenn, her partner here today, is CEO of Ambition Leadership. Jenn is also a certified leadership coach who was trained at Georgetown, and she works with clients in Fortune 500 firms. She has a very successful practice and lots of leadership experience. She also works in government and nonprofit, and just really looking forward to hearing their expertise, again, on this particular topic that I think is elusive to many of us who are in independent practice. So with that, I would like to turn it over to you, Sandy. Feel free to say any more about your background, as well as Jennifer, and we look forward to learning from you.
Thanks, Carrie. That was a lovely intro. I'm going to put up our screen. And Jenn, you're up.
I am. So welcome, and we're super excited to be here. And let's go ahead and go to why we're here. So I'm sure a lot of you feel like Sandy and I did after we attended coaching programs, and it was so fulfilling, and I know for me, life-changing in a lot of ways, as I got a lot of coaching through my coaching program. But then after I was finished, I thought, well, okay, now what? And I wasn't quite sure how to apply my coaching skills, let alone start a business. So if you have ever felt like that, we can absolutely empathize. So our class today, we have some learning objectives. We're going to help you with what markets maybe would be best suited for your coaching style. We're going to talk about branding materials, networking, which for everyone has just gotten so weird since the pandemic, but it never, but don't worry, you absolutely can be networking right now. We're going to talk about establishing credibility, and hopefully you're going to leave this class with some clear next steps to get going.
So what do you think is better than doing work that you love? I wake up every morning excited about work, and that's what makes coaching so great for me. And it's not just because it's something I like, but that you know it's making a difference. Because when people are doing work they love, you see less drama, they're more engaged, the organizations are more productive, and people are more engaged. but we know that it's tough out there. As we've surveyed the industry, a lot of our clients are training internal coaches. So we have competition internally. Many people call themselves coaches who aren't certified and aren't trained. And we see competition from people who will very much lowball their rates. And so then how does a client know what the difference is in a master coach and someone who just calls himself a coach? And as we've seen, most of the companies, the coaching schools, are focused on building your skill as a coach, but not on how you build your business. So if you could just take a minute and in the chat, tell us, what are some of the things you're worried about in building your coaching business? And Carrie, you're monitoring the chat. I don't think I can see it.
Yeah, I am. I think, there's a consistent theme is where do I find the clients? How do I have a constant client flow? Where to begin and how to proceed? Yeah, I think that's kind of the theme that's coming through on the chat. Balancing time and money with other business opportunities and just starting to build the business.
Perfect.
Distinction between non-certified and certified coaches. So very much what you've already sort of named.
Good, that we've got answers for you. The way I started out before I was a coach, I was a programmer, and I was good at programming, good at helping people learn new technology, but it didn't really make me come alive. So I went to business school and learned how to be a leadership coach to find out what I wanted to do, and had the luck to work for Hewlett Packard, where I was in charge of executive development, and got a lot of experience understanding what executives need to get more effective. And I started the first coaching program for them. Then I left California, crazy me, and came to Washington to work for an actuarial firm and started their whole learning and development. And then from there went to McKinsey, where I was teaching soft skills to the consultants, to where finally I said, my best work is working on my own. And I started the Learning Advantage. And that brought me to the whole career development, helping people find work they love so that they wake up every day excited and joyful about work. And I think there's nothing better than coaching. It uses all of my skills, my intellect, my computer skills, my management skills, and my interpersonal skills. So Jenn will take you on her journey.
So I started out in a Fortune 500 consulting firm, and I, at the time, loved it. And I thrived on the challenge. I was known as the person you could give any difficult client to, and I could magically make things happen. And I liked that reputation, but it really wore on me after a while. And I thought, burnout often happens with just working so hard and so many hours in a consulting firm. I wasn't sure what was next. So I did go through a coaching program, but still was working at the consulting firm. And I was partnered with Sandy, who was hired as a subcontractor for my company to do a coaching program for a large government client. And it was amazing. To this day, it's like the most fun I have ever had on a work project. Plus I got to work with Sandy. We got to transform lives and help transform a culture. And when we were working on that, Sandy would often use me as the guinea pig to try out different activities we were going to do with our participants. And one day I still remember where I was sitting. It's just very tangible to remember this one evening. And she was asking me about my goals and my visions and what I really wanted for myself. And as I shared some things and then she repeated back to me, I just came alive and realized I wanted to go out on my own. I wanted to be a coach full time, and I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And I knew what my desk would look like. I knew what I would feel like. And it was just palpable. And ever since that time, it just got under my skin. And it took me a couple of years, but I finally, on Leap Day of 2012, I leapt, and with the support of Sandy and some close friends and family, that was scary. If any of you want to talk about that sometime, I am happy to share my lessons learned. But where it's come now is I, since then, met my husband. I actually had time for a personal life to meet my husband. And I became an instant stepmom of 3 awesome kids. And then I've had 2 biological. So I've been able to balance the work I love with having a family. And no, it's not always easy, but it's what I love to do. And I'm so excited and super grateful for the flexibility of my coaching business. So let's talk about keys to success. And we're going to talk about how important it is that you differentiate yourself from other coaches. And when I say differentiate, sometimes when people ask you, like, so what makes you a great coach? It's easy to go into our coaching program mode and say, well, I'm a great listener. Well, guess what? There are thousands of coaches who define themselves by saying they're a great listener. So we really need to dig down and see what is unique about you. Who are the clients that you love to work with that maybe other coaches don't? I love working with engineers. I'm married to one. And some people are like, oh, so difficult working with those left brain logical people, and I thrive on it. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. We're going to talk about how important it is to have consistent branding and what kind of materials you need to get your name out there. And then, of course, building credibility. And these are applicable to those of you who maybe are in an established coaching business, and then to you who are just starting out. And then networking, key to that, of course, is developing relationships.
So what's important in figuring out what's unique about you is what are the things that you can do that other people give you positive feedback for. A lot of us take our gifts for granted, and I find that all the time in my coaching business, that people undervalue what others see as their greatest strength. So I was told early that I'm really good at getting to the core issue. When it's complex, that I can dive right in. And of course, I was somewhat frustrated by people who couldn't get to that as quickly because I didn't recognize that it was unique. So I'm happy with complex problems. Then I think of relevant experiences. You are going to have so much more alignment with people who have had experiences like you have. The fact that I taught in high school and I taught in college, that I've been a manager, I've had large teams, I've worked in high-tech organizations and consulting organizations, all make me someone that people in those organizations say, oh, she understands what our life is like. She'll resonate with my issues. And then in defining your offer, think about where you've had impact. What do people say about you was different before you came and after you were there? I'm known for creating fun environments where people love to come to work and are productive. So that impact goes right to the bottom line in the organizations I've worked in. And another way is to think about, what do you want to be remembered for? When people talk about you at your retirement party, what are they going to say about you? That's what links into what's unique about you. And the way we put this together is we create a branding template so that you think about your strengths, your passions, what's unique about you, the experiences you've had, so that as you talk to people, they get that essence of how you differentiate yourself from someone else. So I'd like to give you some time to talk about what makes you unique as a coach and what would attract someone to you, so you can have some practice just taking a pass at this. Don't try to be perfect, just have fun with it. So Pablo is going to put you into breakout rooms, and we'll do this for about 5 minutes, and then we'll bring you back to see what you learned from it. Also does recruiting. So that makes her very unique as a coach, because when people are looking for jobs, they always want to know, what do recruiters look for? How do I get a job? How do I get them to help me? So that was a big hit for her. So once you know what's unique about you, then you want to go find the markets where you'll be the most successful. So thinking about the people who you really enjoy working with, like Jenn and I both like working with technical people and engineers. I also like to work with marketing and creative people. And then you think about the organizations where you feel it really fits for you. Some people have a strong sense of mission, and they want to work with organizations that have equally strong missions. And then you want to think about, how does your experience fit that market? So if I'm working with some traders on Wall Street and I have no experience there and I don't know what their day-to-day life is like, sure, I can figure it out over time, but I'm probably not going to be as effective as someone who was a trader and who learned those things on the job. Then we talk about coaching areas where you excel and being clear on that. One of the areas I get a lot of work is from women who don't show up with executive presence, or who lack confidence, who put themselves down. And being a master somatic coach, that's an area that fits really well with my skill set. I also find I'm good with people who have too much confidence. So sometimes I'll get some C-suite executives who throw their weight around, and they don't realize that they're doing that. They just think they're being who they are, but they're shutting off the other people in their organization who want to collaborate and who want to be more of the conversation. And then thinking about, do you want to have a broad offering, or do you want it to be more niche? When it's niche, it's easy for people to know, this person is great working with high school students, helping them find jobs or the college, or they're great working with college grads to find work, or they're particularly good with ADHD, some of those specialty areas. I prefer to have the broad offering because I get bored doing the same thing over and over again. Jenn, what would you say about your offer?
So actually, I really like having a niche, and don't let it worry you that, well, what if you define a niche now and you want to change it later? You absolutely can. But what I found was when I had too broad of an offering, that people just put me in a category of, okay, you're one of a lot of coaches that I know. But then when I say to people, I coach very smart, intelligent people who get promoted into leadership positions, and I teach them about the people side of their job. I get head nods and, oh, I know someone you need to talk to. They know right away what I do. And that is the majority of the work I do, is interpersonal relationships and why people should care and how it helps impact productivity and the bottom line. And it's been a really fun niche for me. And like I said earlier, a lot of people don't like working with that group, and that's perfectly fine. And we're going to talk a little bit later about referrals. But I know other coaches who they'll come across somebody who's an engineer or IT and say, that's not really my wheelhouse, but hey, I know a coach who's great with those people. I don't particularly love working with C-suite. I prefer working with the hungry frontline supervisors or the middle managers, even senior leaders. But I find the C-suite, to me, they often know everything or feel like they do. And I don't feel like I'm making as much of an impact. But I know Sandy is incredible with C-suite, and it's nice to be able to refer people to what they're really good at. And so for that reason, I like niches. So let's talk about describing your ideal client. Now, when you're starting out in a business, there's this mentality of, I'll do anything and everything to make this work. And you know what? That's okay. At the beginning, it's okay to be a little bit more broad-minded because you can't afford to be picky. But then as you get going, you get more experience, you're starting to see that funnel of clients that's consistent. Then you want to start getting picky about who you want to work with. I don't like working with cocky individuals. I thankfully have only had that happen a couple of times. Some of you might decide what level you want to work with of people, but think also about the attributes of what is a good client to you. Is it somebody who has no idea what they're doing and needs someone to help get them started? Or is it somebody who's got some ideas of what they want and you help them build on that? Is this somebody is it a woman? Is it a man? You know, and it's okay for saying, well, I like working with men and women, but just give some thought to like, who are the people you click with? Who are the people where you feel like you can make a difference? And then what are the areas where you really like to work? And a little bit later, we're going to talk about subcontracting. And one thing that's super helpful when I'm matching coaches to clients is to know which coaches like and are experienced in working with certain kinds of issues. So if we've got, like Sandy was talking about, if I have a woman leader who is struggling with feeling like she has a voice at the table, I know Sandy would be a really good fit for that because she's identified and communicated to me that that's a kind of client that she likes to work with. So think, just kind of dream and don't be afraid to bullet out some of those ideal clients. And it can be helpful to look back on who've been your favorite clients you've worked with in the past and what do you want more of. So branding materials, you'll see quite a contrast with the pictures on the left versus the right. So you might love working with artists, yoga instructors, people who specialize in health and wellness, or the art community. And if that's your group, you're going to want a brand and a feel with all of your materials that speaks to that flowing, the energy, creativity. If you like working in the IT field, then you're going to want yours to look more like logical, structured, clean, not a lot of distractions. And this is a work in process too. I was talking to somebody last week, a colleague who was an engineer now doing something else. And he commented, he said, I really like your website, but I noticed it didn't really speak to me as an engineer. And I said, what do you mean? He said, here's what is the input, here's what the output is. And I thought, well, why didn't I think of that? Yes, and so I'm gonna redo my homepage so that it speaks to input, output, like an engineer or an IT person would want. So think about also, are you going to be using your branding materials with a C-suite audience? Sometimes it's smart to have branding materials geared towards HR if you like to get into organizations and you want bigger coaching programs. Just be really clear on who you're trying to speak to, and then you're going to align everything, all of your marketing materials to support that brand, and make sure no matter how they come at you, whether it's social media or a slick sheet or whatever, that it all lines up to speak to that one awesome coach that you are. So essential marketing tools. So if you had to just pick 4 things that you absolutely had to do, these are it. All right. Number 1, you need a professional website. Why, do you ask? Well, let me tell you, when I hear a name, and I get all the time, I hear names of people who know me or know someone who knows me, and they want to get on a cadre that I'm overseeing, a coaching cadre. The first thing I do when I hear a name is I Google them and I look for their own website. That's number 1. If they don't have a website, sometimes I just move on. because that makes me think, oh, they must not be that established if they don't even have a website. The second thing I do is I go to LinkedIn. And you know what, with LinkedIn, it's one of those things that I think a lot of us filled out one time, a long, long time ago, and we haven't gone back to it. And we need to keep it updated. And in fact, looking for a job and having that kind of a LinkedIn page versus I have a coaching business and I've got something to offer you as a completely different kind of LinkedIn page. There's all kinds of resources online and things you can look at, examples, look around at other LinkedIn profiles. And oh yeah, I saw one the other day that I thought, oh, I love what he did with his about section. But make sure people can go to it and get a sense of who you are, what you do, and what you specialize in. And I'll tell you, if I can't find you on LinkedIn or a professional website, I've moved on to a list, long list of coaches who want to do coaching work. Something else that I think is super helpful to have is a one-page profile about you. And so I have a little picture, a snapshot of my one sheet. And this is targeted to podcast hosts. So if a podcast host is trying to decide if they want to have me on their show, they can read a little summary about my background. What are the topics I like talking about? And here's some suggested questions, just boom. Now I have another slick sheet for people who might want to work with me as a coach. I have another slick sheet for people who are looking for coaches to put in a cadre. And once you have one built, then it's easy to tailor and customize it, but just have something simple that you can send to people. So boom, they can hang on to it and look at it again. And the last thing is a resume. Now, if you have a really great LinkedIn page, you may not need to also have a resume. If you're planning on doing subcontract work, you're going to want both. And so just make sure you've got a resume that's not only up to date, but again, you've got to tailor now everything toward, I'm a coach, I'm open for business, which is going to be different from the resume you used to get the last job you had. And then we have building credibility. And with building credibility, there are lots of really simple ways that you can do this. So don't let this list overwhelm you. These are just some ideas, and I would recommend you pick one that you're not currently doing and start there. The first thing is publish. So we've got Sandy, who's a superstar who wrote a book. I don't want to write a book. Maybe someday, but not now. But I just started publishing a monthly newsletter to help increase my visibility and build my credibility. You can publish posts on social media, like a business Facebook page or LinkedIn, but there's got to be some way that people are getting a sense of who you are and what you know and what you have to offer through things that they can read or things that they can hear. Little videos. If you go to my website, you'll see that I have a lot of little snippets of what is coaching and what are some of the things that I do to help my clients. So people who don't like to read very much can watch a video. And I've heard that's really popular with the millennials and Generation Z. Client testimonials. So I think those are really helpful in a couple ways. Number one, you can ask, there's a way in LinkedIn that you can actually request for someone to leave a review about you. It's a great idea to have at least 2 or 3 on LinkedIn. You also can use quotes from past clients on your website, and that can be a really fun way. Some people even have like a whole page on their website of client testimonials. And when you're using client testimonials, it's often helpful to give a background about that person. And you can even share, like if you're trying to summarize an experience that you had with a coaching client, you can start with what was the problem? What did you do to help fix that issue or coach that person? And then what was the impact? What changed? And if you just structure it in concisely with those 3 points, it's really powerful, because then people can read it and say, wow, I have a similar problem. Okay, so this is what Marianne would do to work with me, and maybe I'd have an outcome like her client did. Just make sure when you use client testimonials that either you have permission from the person to use their name or use their quote. Or if you wanted to summarize the experience very generically so no one would know that's who it was, do that and change the name. And then that's another way you can use client examples also. You want to use professional equipment. So right when I got into podcast guesting, I got my headphones so I can very clearly hear everything. I've got a webcam that, even though my laptop has one on it, I have one that's nicer. I have a microphone that I use, so my audio is really clear. And then I also have a ring light. So I have this light above me that brings just more brightness, and I don't have to worry about a shadow on half my face because I have a window right over here. You don't have to go out and buy everything, but just make sure you think about what are you using often, and just make sure when people see you that they see you as somebody who is professional and that you're just not like lollygagging doing this on the side for fun. The next thing is you want to have a professional background. So I can't see, Sandy, can we see the gallery view on here?
Let's see.
So you'll see Sandy's background. She has this lovely area, work area in her basement of her house. So I see some nice frame pictures. I see the cabinets. I see the pretty flower arrangement, but mostly I see Sandy. So I see her, and there's not distractions around me. There aren't piles of laundry behind her. Every once in a while, you'll get a glimpse of a cat, and that's fun because that just humanizes her. So that's the way she likes to show up. Behind me, I have a bookcase. So I have my like a C-shaped desk, and then I have this nook of leadership books. And I do have some clutter, but I try to make sure that that's not hidden. And, you know, I have that. I know some people really like virtual backgrounds, and those are okay too. Although those can get a little wonky sometimes when we move and you see little things and don't see other things. But what's you, and what do you want people to see? And just make sure that what they see is going to attract them to you and the kind of coach that you are. And I also make sure you're dressed professionally. And if you're doing a lot on Zoom, which let's face it, we all are right now, it's nice to wear either solid colors, or you see Sandy's jacket that has a nice pattern, but it's not loud. My eyes aren't drawn to it. And so I'm staring at some crazy flower pattern instead of looking at Sandy's face. So it doesn't matter what you're wearing on the bottom half of you, pajamas, whatever. But I do recommend pants, but you're going to want to make sure what people see projects a professional image. And then the last thing with credibility, this is a pet peeve of mine, is you need a professional email address. When I get emails from coaches that say, you know, susieq@gmail.com, my first thought is, oh, I guess you don't really do this as a business. It makes me think that you just do this here and there as a hobby, not as a profession. And it's not hard or expensive to get a professional email address. Google or G Suite, they offer very affordable options. If you have a website, whoever's hosting your website will have options for you to have an email with your domain. That check it out, because that can really make the difference between somebody investigating you farther or deciding to go in a different direction. I feel like I've been talking a lot, and I am going to get to this prioritize the business slide. But before I do that, are there any comments in the chat that we should address?
Yeah, I think there was a conversation string, and it might be best to actually invite the folks who are engaging in it to just say a few words. But I know, Kim, you had some ideas, and Fernando, you had a question. Why don't we start with Fernando's question, and you might be getting to it at some point, but he was curious about platforms. There's a lot of platforms out there that are now offering coaching, such as Coach's Console, Coach Accountable, Nudge Coach. And so some questions around that, if you can get to that. And then, Kim, is there anything you'd like to add to what you've been putting in the chat box? I invite you to take yourself off mute.
Thank you so much, Carrie. I apologize. I didn't mean to hijack anything. I was just kind of
Not
responding to
No, go ahead.
other people's comments. I just am really grateful for this session. Mostly, I want to say, because I work specifically in the entrepreneur space, and almost all of my clients are highly educated and credentialed coaches or consultants. And this piece about business just gets completely left out of the conversation. And so I just was offering some different ideas in there that sort of harmonize and tie in with some topics. I think I wasn't trying to be contrarian, but I think the idea of the niche is just, I try and encourage clients to think of it like dating and not marriage, because at least if you start putting yourself out there in some way, marketing works so much better and easier, and it gets people into action, because a lot of times they get paralyzed by this idea that they have to either be perfect or highly skilled. And when we're new and we come out of coaching programs, we don't have that kind of self-efficacy yet. So I kind of really encourage people, let's go through your greatest hits and figure out where you really shine. You can always change it later, like dating. And but at least it starts getting that experience coaching in a hands-on way. And then when you know what it is, you not only can talk about it very easily, but you can provide resources, and people can also refer you really easy, because as one of you said earlier, how does someone distinguish between the ocean of coaches that are out there, let alone not even certified or not certified, but just even all of this that are ICF certified? I mean, there's tens of thousands, so I think we can do a lot for ourselves. And I find that marketing and sales happen quite organically when we have some clarity around that and can talk about it in a language that our ideal client understands and it lands.
Thank you, Kim. I appreciate that, because you're absolutely right. I mean, I've reinvented myself as a coach. I don't even know how many times since I went out on my own 12, was it 8? I can't add right now, 9 years ago. And it's okay to, try something out, see what happens, change it up, or get clarity about something. And I appreciate you taking that panic out if anybody was feeling like, I don't know what to do. And then I'm going to swing back to, is it Fernando, who was asking about tools and platforms. So let me say this. When you go out on your own, it's really easy to get caught up in like all these tools. And then if you're on LinkedIn and you start posting, let me tell you right now, the marketers come out of woodwork and they find you, and then they want to get a little meeting with you to tell you about how they can get all these lead generations for you. And I'm not saying that's not important, but there's so much you can do without all the bells and whistles. So if you're just starting out, I would just use the prominent social media market. And even within that, there's, are your people on Instagram? Are they on TikTok? Are they on Facebook? Are they on LinkedIn? And just start there, because that can keep you pretty busy to keep an audience engaged on just one platform. There are lots of CRMs and turnkey coaching platforms. When you get to a point where you've got more coaching clients than you can mentally keep track of, then it's time for you to turn to a platform like that. For me, I have little file folders for each one of my clients. I take notes by hand, I keep them in there, and then I have a system with my calendar that allows me to keep track of that. So you don't need to invest in a whole lot right now. I just focus on the meat of what you're doing, and then sometimes support can be helpful. Let's go ahead and go to that prioritizing the business slide, because this leads right into there. So one really important aspect of coaching is the business side. I know some coaches that are absolutely phenomenal as coaches who are on my blacklist of coaches I will never work with again. So how do you get on my naughty list? Turn in your reports late. So I think anytime you're working with either, let's say the CIA hired you as a coach, they're going to want you to turn in reports and invoices on time. Or let's say a company like Management Concepts hired you as a coach and you're a subcontractor for them and you're doing coaching at the IRS. It doesn't matter which the scenario is, you've got reports and things that you've got to get turned in, and you're going to have a deadline. And if you don't meet those deadlines, usually if you're late once, that's usually, most people give you grace. If it's twice, they start wondering if it's going to be a habit. And by the third time you do it, it's not worth working with you. And because there are so many great coaches out there. So one way I can tell you that you can absolutely differentiate yourself is you be the one who's got it covered on the business side. Make sure when you're invoicing that you are emailing it to the correct email address and it's not getting stuck in someone else's email who really isn't in charge of doing that stuff. You're going to want to make sure that you're responsive. If whether it's a prospective client or the company that subcontracted to you or a current client you have, I would say absolutely respond to anybody, preferably within 24 hours, absolutely in 48 hours. Now, I know a lot of us who are working as solopreneurs, if you don't have somebody who can check email while you're out, then put an out of office message and that should be just fine. And if you are going to maybe miss a deadline or something, you work that out in advance so nobody's surprised. But you've got to be responsive. And then if you are, if you're subcontracting, you've got to be respectful in the sense of, if I am hired by, I do a lot of work under Management Concepts. If I'm working with one of their clients, it would be completely inappropriate for me to talk to my clients about, hey, well, Ambition Leadership is hosting this webinar and because I shouldn't be looking to get paid directly from any of the clients that I've met from subcontracting with this company. And once you start doing subcontracting, you'll see most companies are going to have a written agreement. If they don't offer you one, suggest one. Even people you know well and love, because you want to make sure everybody's clear on expectations and do's and don'ts. If you have a problem on the business side, and let me tell you, a lot of coaches do, because they want to just spend their time coaching and not worrying about the stuff that feels tedious and detail oriented, then you have lots of options. Look into getting a virtual assistant. I absolutely recommend having a bookkeeper. Just get people who do the stuff that you don't like to do, and they can make sure you're not missing deadlines and you're presenting a very business-like front. And you can really get some help for not very much money. It's an absolutely affordable thing you can do when you're just starting out. And then I skipped the bullet about the Icf Code of Ethics, just not because it's not important, but I was on a roll. And you absolutely need to check in with yourself and making sure that you are in alignment with the Code of Ethics. And if you're not sure what they are, go to the ICF website and refresh your mind every once in a while, because they're good reminders for all of us, even when we've been doing this for a long time. All right, Sandy, you want to take it on pricing?
Mm-hmm. So this is one of the hardest things for coaches. It's figuring out how you're going to price. So it's important to know what your market is paying for pricing so you don't undercharge or overcharge. A lot of the companies that I work in have a certain pricing that they pay to coaches. So if you want to work there, that's what you're going to get paid, and there's no flexibility. And when you know your value, you know that you're making a difference in that organization, and they try to offer you something that you feel isn't worthwhile, be brave and walk away. Carrie has a wonderful slogan. She said, nothing under 3 figures. So this $40 an hour for phone coaching, don't even think about it, because then that sets a lower level that it's hard to come up from. And then I look at what's my bottom line. So when I was starting out, I said, what are my expenses? How many clients do I need? And what do I need to charge to be able to stay in business? One of the big trade-offs is whether you're going to get your own business or whether you're going to subcontract. And I know a lot of coaches who say subcontracting is the way to go. I don't like to market myself. I'm uncomfortable with that. For myself, I found that I established really strong relationships with my clients. And because I've had led executive development, done a lot of training and a lot of consulting, I look at an organization and see opportunities where I can do a lot more work. So it may start out as a coaching engagement and I end up doing leadership development for the management team. If I'm subcontracting, just like Jenn said, that work belongs to the person I'm subbing to. So I would personally rather go out and generate my own work. And what I found after 23 years of coaching is I don't have to do any marketing. All of the business I get is from clients I've worked with before or referrals. I couldn't do that if I were subcontracting. So it just depends on your appetite for marketing, going out and getting the work versus working for someone else. A lot of times when we're coaching, we're just thinking about our time, but there's also the time that we prepare, getting ready for a session, thinking about the person's issue, putting together perhaps articles or webcasts or something that would be useful to reinforce the learning for them, as well as the follow-up time. So don't just think of it as an hour of coaching. I typically bill an hour and a half for 1 hour of in-person coaching because of the preparation and follow-up that I do related to that. And then there's the issue of, do you charge by the hour or do you do packages? With my corporate clients, I always do packages because I don't want to sit there and figure out what the hours are. And I don't want the clients to feel like they can't call on me when they need it. So I will typically package 6 to 9 months of coaching, 1 to 2 meetings a month, a Hogan assessment, which is a leadership assessment. I will do a 360, talking to their boss, their peers, and their direct reports to get a summary of what they see as their strengths. And all of that is packaged into one unit. It's usually somewhere between $20,000 and $30,000, depending on the length of it. If I say that to an individual client, they're going to choke. They don't recognize the benefit of coaching yet and don't want to make that big and upfront investment. So I have a range of hourly rates from friends and family to what the corporation is used to paying. So you can be sure that if I'm working with someone individually, I'm not going to be charging them the same rate that I would when a corporation is paying for it. So any questions or comments right here? This is a pretty juicy area, I imagine.
There's no specific questions yet, but I do think this is probably something a lot of people are sitting in. And I wonder, Sandy, if you could talk a little bit about maybe how a novice coach should price versus someone who's maybe been coaching for about 5 years. I see a couple nods in the room. Do you have anything to maybe add around that?
I think when you're starting out, something in the $200 to $300 range per hour is very acceptable, but you have to feel like it's worth it. And Drew asked, what do you do if your referral network have all retired? Well, the referral network is really useful because a lot of my clients, my coaching clients, do retirement coaching, helping people who've retired figure out what they want to do in their next role. And many of them still mentor people who are in the organizations. So I ask the referral for a referral to someone they know rather than just counting on them.
Yeah, so that's not working. I mean, they've really retired. They've made their pile. They're driving their motorcycles across the country.
Time to find new clients. And so think about what you love, who you love to work with. Maybe it's the people before they have retired that would be the most useful to you. Or maybe it is their children. They probably have children who are sick of their jobs or want to figure out what to do next.
I would also add, Drew, I would look for groups you can join. And as frustrating as it's been for me, an extrovert, to not have in-person networking opportunities, there are so many great ways that you can meet up with other people. There are a lot of Facebook groups that are focused on coaches, and it can be an awesome forum to ask questions and get to know people. When you think about who are the kinds of people who need you and what kind of knowledge do they need or help do they need, then think about, okay, are there associations and maybe they're hosting some kind of a virtual event? Is there some place that you could go?
Yeah. Those are good suggestions. I am member. I have joined a couple of organizations.
Mm-hmm.
I will typically work at a fairly senior level, and they're not on Facebook. They don't do Facebook. Their presence on LinkedIn tends to be very careful and muted. I've done a fair amount of work in private equity, and they tend to be, oh God, don't use my name. Don't say, don't tell them what you did. I don't want anybody to know. So that creates some logistical barriers. So I guess I'm feeling like I'd like it to go faster, and the typical answers aren't applicable. That's my frustration. That's what I feel my challenge is.
So Drew, I would talk to some of the HR leaders in the private equity business, because they're probably looking for coaches for their leaders who could be a lot more effective. And I find that once you have some good HR people, they will recommend you in their organization. The average price, Fernando, for an experienced coach, I think, is anywhere from $350 to $600.
Unless you're if you're a subcontractor, they're not going to get that. So that would be if you have your own contract.
Yeah. So what do you say for subcontractors?
I would say for an experienced coach, between 200 and 250. It would be that would be government. If you're talking private sector, you can probably expect more like 300 to maybe 350. That would be the high end as a sub.
Yeah, I agree with those numbers. And the other thing I would throw out is it also depends on where you're located. So, East Coast, West Coast, the rates that Sandy just quoted probably resonate, make sense. If you're Midwestern, or I live in Denver, and I typically work in nonprofits. So again, I think you guys said it earlier, you really have to look at, if you're really drawn to doing coaching in healthcare and education, what is typical for hospitals or districts to pay a coach? And sometimes it doesn't matter how amazing you are and how experienced you are. That's what they can afford. And so you want to be able to price yourself in a way that gives you the opportunity to get that work, if that's the work that's important to you. So I think region matters as well.
Absolutely.
Another key is really developing strong relationships. As I said, all of my business comes from people I've worked with before or who I've been referred to. But one of the things that's important is to make sure that you're building relationships with people you like. When I was starting out, I would join a lot of networking groups, and I didn't always feel I had commonality with the people. I didn't enjoy being with them, and then networking became painful. So when I work with people that I enjoy, that in itself is satisfying to me. And if work doesn't come from it, it doesn't matter. I also look for groups where my skills would be useful. So I have worked with several shelters where they're trying to teach life skills to their residents, how to have confidence, how to plan, how to work on a resume. So working there is a place where I feel like I can make a difference. And I'm meeting the management, the leadership, the board of that shelter, which again connects me to other people. On this one, where we say present to buyers, not people who think you're cool. When I was first starting out, there was an organization called the American Society of Training and Development. And each year I would send in a proposal to present at their conference. And every year I got accepted. And I would do it sometimes with colleagues of mine. And one day we were sitting back and saying, you know, we've presented for the last 10 years. What work have we gotten from doing this? Zero. So why is that? Well, first of all, the people who showed up were young trainers who wanted to learn what we knew. They weren't buyers. Mm-hmm. Secondly, we told them everything to be successful. We gave them the kit to go apply it. So they didn't really need us. And we weren't thoughtful about how we presented our skills in a way that people would know, if I need to do this, I should bring in Sandy or Jenn. It's also good to think about coach directories. With Georgetown, we have an alumni directory, so you can stay in touch with other coaches and reach out. And about once a week, there's someone looking for a referral for a particular kind of skill. And then as Jenn mentioned, when you refer work to other coaches, there's a bit of reciprocity. And it's also good to let a client know, I'm not the best person for this. A person reached out to me to do a DISC workshop. And I am certified in DISC, but it's not my main bread and butter. So I referred them to a colleague of mine who loves DISC and uses it all the time. So I think that's providing more value to the potential client than if I did it, and it builds my relationship with that coach. And sometimes we don't leverage the relationships we have. So it's important to think about, what do you want to get out of it? Do you want just support? So a lot of us join support groups where we share what we're working on and they give you ideas, but it's not going to give you leads. If you want leads, then that's a different kind of group. And in my area, there are all kinds of things where people come together with different skills from different industries. Some might be photographers, some might be marketing people, some do finance, and we refer work to each other. I love it when my clients refer me to someone else, because that means they valued what I offered. And it means I already have credibility going into the conversation with the new person. Sometimes in networking, you want to get feedback because you're not sure you're presenting the most effective way, or you feel like you may have gotten stuck, or you just want to get better ideas. And then sometimes you want a coaching engagement. If you don't ask, you don't get. That was a hard lesson for me, having been in organizations for much of my career where people came to me. It was hard for me to learn to ask for the work, but critical. And then once you've met with people, follow up. Let them know how you used their opinions, their help. Offer to help them. When there's reciprocity involved, again, that makes the relationship just that much stronger. Anything you would add here, Jenn?
Yeah, actually, I was just adding it to the chat, but I'll say it verbally. So any of you listening who who have put all the eggs in the coaching business basket and are the sole breadwinner in your family, or you're in a situation where you absolutely need both incomes, I've been there. And I would say absolutely find an entrepreneur group that you could join, so you have other people who totally get what you're going through and can just celebrate with you, can cry with you. I know when I started out, and my first year and a half was really tough, and I had a lot of friends and family say, well, you decided to go out on your own. I'm like, that's not so helpful, is it? It was really nice to be able to talk to people who were like, dude, yeah, I was lying awake last night wondering how I was going to pay my rent. And there are all kinds of groups out there. If you want some specific ones, feel free to reach out to me. You can Google, but find people who can relate, and that'll keep supporting you, encouraging you when times get tough.
And then believe in yourself. That's the most important. I can remember lots of days when I was very nervous about whether I was going to be able to pay my mortgage or not. It takes a while. It really takes a long time to build enough clients so that you can have your own business and pay your bills. If you have an abundance mindset, that makes a big difference too, because people see that you're not hungry, needy, scared, and that builds trust with them. If you don't feel comfortable talking about yourself, that's going to be a problem. It's very hard to build business if you can't authentically talk about the value you'll provide. So you may need to get yourself a coach to help work in that area. And then, as Jenn mentioned earlier, creating the support systems you need. I've had a virtual assistant since I started my business, and I can't tell you what a difference that makes for me. So making sure you have the people around you who are going to let you do your best work and be effective doing it. So we thought we would move into some small group discussions and let you go deeper on the areas that were of most interest. And that had already been narrowed down to number 1 and number 4, creating an elevator pitch and how to get work as a subcontractor. And Paulo figured out a way that you could assign yourself to the breakout room you want.
Slide 26.
May.
There, yes, that's the one. Okay, so Sandy and I are super excited about what we do, and we want to be helpful. I know there are questions that we didn't get to or topics that didn't get addressed. So just for you all who are attending today, we are offering a 1-hour group coaching session. It would be limited to just 5 people per group, and you can ask us any questions that you want. You could send us a marketing click sheet to look at and give feedback on. You could ask us to what companies to network with, whatever you want. We are happy to tell you what we know, and also to be a sounding board and do some coaching with maybe getting clear about your elevator pitch and so on. So this exclusive offer just for this group is that 1-hour coaching session for just $99. And again, it's only going to be 5 other people with either me or Sandy, so great deal. Then another offer that we have, one great niche right now is career coaching. We all know people who've been laid off, or people that are, what do you call it, unemployed or underemployed. And we also have people who are getting ready to graduate from high school or college, or just did last year, and what a year, oh my gosh, to be unemployed in. So we are doing a career coaching program, a career coaching certification program, if you think that might be a great way to help people and differentiate yourself. If you're also interested in getting continuing ed credits, the total program is worth 28, which is a smoking offer. And what we cover in our training is 8 modules. I'm not going to read all about them, but you can see we tackle everything from helping people decide if they want to stay or leave a current job, deep dive into strengths and passions, how to make those goals real and what to do when you get unstuck. We talk about branding, we talk about networking, and all of this you can apply to yourself while you're also learning how to apply it to clients. We'd love to have you join our program if you're interested. And you can learn more about that program on Sandy's website, which is right here, www.juicywork.com. So again, we have those two offers, a $99 group coaching session, and then we have the career coaching certification program. Then Sandy and I both have our email addresses here, and those are our actual numbers. You call that number, you will get us. And we would love just to be a resource if you just need a sounding board, some help, or you're interested in working with either of us professionally. We just would love to hear from you.
And Carrie, back to you.
Oh, thank you both, Jennifer and Sandy. Such valuable reminders of what it really requires to set up private practice. And so I know I speak for the group that I think everybody's walking away with something good and powerful to be thinking about. We have 2 minutes left if there's anybody that has a question or a comment, and then I'll stop the recording right when we hit 11:30.
Oh, and someone asked if they could have our slides, and absolutely.
Great.
You have
I just want to add for myself a personal thank you to Jennifer and to Sandy for great presentation, putting all this work into it and bringing themselves into the conversation with us.
Thanks, Drew.
Thanks, Drew.
Yeah, for those who do want a copy of the slides, what would probably work best is for you to email me so I know, and I will then ask Sandy and Jennifer to send those to you directly. Not all of our presenters are sharing their slides because some of it is original material, but thank you for your willingness to do that.
Absolutely.
It's really kind. Okay.
I have a quick question. Do I have time for a question?
Go ahead.
Yeah, is the program you were just talking about career coaching, is that self-paced?
No, it's live.
It's live, okay.
Yep, live. It has group coaching with it.
All right, thank you.
Hi, Dee Dee. Nice to see you.
Hi, Sandy. I'm going to send you a LinkedIn message, okay?
Great.
Thanks. Sure.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much. For those who are moving on to different sessions, enjoy the rest of your conference. I'm sure I'll be seeing you in multiple other webinars today. And Sandy and Jennifer, thank you again for your time. So valuable. Very, very appreciative. Have a wonderful day, everybone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
That was great.
Thank you.
Thank you.